There she is. There she is.
Alright, so welcome back to another Tiermaker video. I know I just finished up my DS9 Tiermaker video series. I'm still kind of in the middle of trying to figure out what I want to do on Tuesdays now. I'm thinking of maybe running a gaming stream, but I'm still not 100% ready on, pressing the live button yet. But here's a little preview if you're interested. So I figure I would do a very quick Tiermaker video for the Star Trek movies. Now this includes the original 6 movies, for the original series, the 4 next-gen movies. It includes Galaxy Quest, which technically it's not, but it was largely inspired by Star Trek, so okay, I'll allow it. And also the J.J. Abrams movies. And I know there are a lot of people out there not super big into the J.J. Abrams movies. To be honest, I tolerate them just because they take place in another timeline, and I'm totally free to ignore that timeline. Not exactly thrilled that they destroyed Romulus in order to make that timeline, but I just pretend that that never happened. Romulus is still alive and well, and they're doing their stuff after Nemesis. So, but without further ado, let's rank the Star Trek movies. So, Star Trek the Motion Picture. I'm not a super big fan of the movie. It brings the cast back together, but not a whole lot happens in that movie. I mean, I know there is technically a plot to it, but I look at that movie, whenever I watch it, I'm just like, yeah, not a whole lot's happening in this movie. There's some weird psychedelic effects going on with Spock. And, yeah, Voyager is, of course, Voyager. Not Janeway's Voyager, but the Voyager.
Voyager. Voyager.
But, it was basically just an excuse to have these long flyby shots of the Enterprise. And, yeah, the graphics at the time, I bet, were really impressive, and they still look pretty alright today. But, yeah, to me, the movie is just an excuse to have flyby shots of the Enterprise, and not a whole lot's going on. I wouldn't say that I hate the movie, I just have almost no interest in rewatching it. I think I've seen it like twice, but that's about it. So, I think I'm gonna put it in C tier. I can't call it a bad movie, but it's not a very interesting movie, so I'll just put it in C tier. Alright, Wrath of Khan. I think most people agree that Wrath of Khan is an excellent movie. It does tend to be the fan favorite in the fandom. People rank that as the top Star Trek movie, Wrath of Khan. And of course, you have Ricardo Montalban. It's always a pleasure seeing him on screen. He's definitely a winning guest star. You have the emotional scene where Spock dies, giving his life to save the Enterprise. You have Kirk's emotional eulogy for Spock at his funeral. You have Amazing Grace playing. Man, that rendition of Amazing Grace has to be one of my favorite renditions of Amazing Grace. The other rendition that I really like is from the movie Amazing Grace, actually. But Wrath of Khan's Amazing Grace is great because it goes from like a Star Trek soundtrack to bagpipes playing Amazing Grace to this really excellent rendition of Amazing Grace, and then back to more of like a Star Trek soundtrack. It's a very nice piece. I think most of us agree that Wrath of Khan is S tier material, so it's definitely going up in the S tier for me. Excellent movie. I've probably only seen it like 2 or 3 times, but yeah, it's a great movie. Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. I remember when I first watched The Search for Spock, I mainly watched it so Star Trek IV would make sense, because I heard great things about Star Trek IV, but I wanted the additional context so I wouldn't be completely lost with 4. And then it turned out you really don't need to see Star Trek 3 for 4 to make sense. So when I first watched Star Trek 3, I was like, yeah, okay, that happened. When I went through the original 6 Star Trek movies within the last year, I kind of grew to appreciate Search for Spock. It has some really great acting moments from Shatner, specifically when he finds out that his son David was just killed.
David is dead.
You know, and as much as people make fun of Shatner for his acting style, He's actually not a bad actor. He has some really good acting moments, especially in Search for Spock. It's actually not too bad of a movie. It has its moments. You see the crew coming together, where in Wrath of Khan, Spock said the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. But with Search for Spock, you see them all coming together, sacrificing their needs for the one. Which is kind of a nice bit of poetry between the two movies. It's probably not the highlight of the Star Trek movies, but it's pretty solid. I'm gonna go ahead and say it's A-tier material. I really enjoy Search for Spock. Although, rest in peace, the original Enterprise.
My God, Bones. What have I done?
What you had to do.
Star Trek 4 is my top Star Trek movie. It's going in S tier. It is better than Wrath of Khan. I said better than Wrath of Khan. It's a plot so bat crazy that it had to work. Because if you explain this plot to like anybody who's not a Trekkie, they're gonna look at you like you're insane. Like, this is actually a good movie? Like, yes, it absolutely is. Because you have to explain, yeah, Kirk, Spock, and the Enterprise crew go back in time to the 80s to pick up a couple of humpback whales to save the Earth from a probe. That's the entire movie. You have the fish out of water story, where it's a futuristic Enterprise crew stuck in the 80s, and they're trying to make their way through San Francisco and trying to blend in. You have some of those great moments, like,
Everybody remember where we parked.
They like you very much, but they are not the hell your whales.
I suppose they've told you that, huh?
The hell they did.
Hello, computer.
Just use the keyboard.
The keyboard. How quaint. Admiral, there be whales here.
I absolutely love this movie. It's just a fun movie altogether. It does have a little bit of an environmental message, save the whales. But I think everybody remembers the comedy of it, and it's really enjoyable. Even if you're not a Trekkie, it's a fun time. Ah yes, the infamous Star Trek V. The one where they're roasting marshmallows, singing "Row, row, row your boat." We have to wonder, what does God need with a starship?
What does God need with a starship?
Kirk is embarrassing Spock in front of the Klingons. Fan consensus is that this is one of the worst Star Trek movies, and it certainly falls into the stereotypical pattern of the even number movies are the good Star Trek movies, where the odd number ones are the bad movies. Although Star Trek 3 was actually pretty good. It has the unfortunate distinct of being an odd number Star Trek movie, but it's actually a pretty good movie. So Star Trek 5 is considered to be one of the worst Star Trek movies, and my opinion of Star Trek 5 is that the middle of it is actually pretty good. It tries to explore the idea of how pain contributes to who you are as a person, and that if you take pain, like all the pain that somebody experienced away, they're no longer the same person anymore.
They're the things we carry with us, the things that make us who we are. If we lose them, we lose ourselves. I don't want my pain taken away. I need my pain.
It's actually a pretty nice concept for Star Trek to explore. I would argue that the Next Gen episode Tapestry explores a similar concept. The problem with this movie, though, is that the beginning is pretty terrible and the ending is pretty terrible. So you have a decent middle sandwiched between terrible bookends, so to speak. And to be honest, I've only sat through Star Trek V once. I haven't really felt much need to rewatch it, because, yeah, it's just getting through the beginning and the ending, even though the middle is pretty okay. We have that great Scotty moment where he's like, "What are you standing around for? Do you not know a jailbreak when you see one?"
Stand back.
What are you standing around for? Do you not know a jailbreak when you see one?
Yeah, Scotty's got some pretty good comedy in that movie. I will say that. I guess I would put Star Trek V above the motion picture, because that middle is pretty good, and even though, yeah, even if the bookends are kind of terrible, at least there is a plot, and it does try to say something, where I feel like the motion picture didn't say a whole bunch. Maybe that's a sign I need to sit through the motion picture a third time, but I'd rather not. Probably of the two, I wouldn't mind sitting through Star Trek V again, because at least something happens in Star Trek V, where motion picture I feel like not a whole bunch happens. Star Trek 6, I remember being a pretty decent movie. I think I only sat through it like twice, but it is a pretty good movie. And you have David Warner in there as Gorkin. You have the filmmakers trying to avoid that R rating by changing the color of Klingon blood, which immediately gets retconned in the Next Gen era. Well, not immediately, but eventually it gets retconned. And an R rating for a Star Trek movie would just be weird. Especially Star Trek 6, because other than the little bit of blood in the one scene, it's not R material at all. Not exactly the craziest about the Federation conspiracy going on to sabotage the peace treaty with the Klingons, but I mean, it works. It works okay. Not exactly thrilled with Kim Cattrall, it turns out. She was in on it, but yeah, I remember Star Trek 6 being an okay movie. It's not really a movie I go back and watch a whole bunch, but it's alright. I might put it in B tier, just because the couple of times I've seen it, I'm like, yeah, okay, I watched it, but I haven't really felt the need to go back and rewatch it like some of the other Star Trek movies. Like, Star Trek 3, I don't have a problem sitting through again. Yeah, and 6 is okay, but, I'm not going out of my way to really sit through it again either. Like, I'm okay with sitting through it, but I don't have to. Alright, we're in the Next Gen era with Generations, the passing of the torch, if you will, going from Captain Kirk to Captain Picard. Now, I know a lot of people don't like Generations. I actually don't mind it. I don't mind Generations like a lot of people do. I do have my issues with it, though. The big issue I have is that it killed off Robert Picard and Renee Picard, which, if you guys have hung around my channel long enough, you know that the Next Gen episode Family is my favorite episode of Next Gen. I love Jeremy Kemp's performance as Robert Picard. The kid actor they got for Renee, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but he's pretty good and he's likable. Kids in Star Trek aren't usually well written, but I did like Renee Picard and how he aspires to be a Starfleet captain, much like his uncle Jean-Luc. And then Generations happened, and he was killed off with Robert. But I think of all the Next Gen movies, all 4 of them, Generations feels the most like an episode of the show, which I do like. We have the meeting of the two greats, Captain Picard and Captain Kirk. They meet in the Nexus. I don't know if that technically counts as meeting, but they met. I do like that conversation that Kirk and Picard have while they're riding their horses. And Kirk's telling Picard, don't let them promote you. Don't let them do anything that takes you off the bridge of that ship.
Don't let them do anything that takes you off the bridge of that ship, because while you're there, you can make a difference.
I really like that speech a lot, and it's very Captain Kirk, and I think Picard, he probably is more at home as being a captain rather than an admiral. I think it was a meme for a while where Captain Janeway, she became an admiral in Nemesis, and then Picard's still a captain, but the thing is, I think Picard is best as a captain. I don't think he's necessarily admiral material. Give him his ship, let him go out into the field, do his diplomacy. He knows what he's doing. It's like Captain Sisko I wouldn't see as an admiral either. I see him more as being out in the field and doing missions. Well, or commanding DS9. But where am I putting Generations? I think Generations is a pretty B-tier movie. I'd say it's probably a high B-tier movie. I'd probably rank it above Star Trek 6 if it'll allow me. Here we go. Yeah, it's definitely not a perfect movie. It does have its flaws, but I don't mind it. I know people don't like Generations, and I totally get it, but I don't mind the movie. Star Trek First Contact. It's been quite a while since I've seen the movie, but I would say out of the 4 Next Gen movies, it's probably the best. But it doesn't really feel all that much like an episode of the show. It feels very much like a movie, which I think Star Trek The Next Generation tends to work better as a TV show rather than a series of movies. I mean, it's a pretty good movie. You have the Borg coming back, and they're going back in time to screw up the meeting between humans and Vulcans. I do see people complain about the Borg Queen, and how it kind of takes away from the original concept of how there are no leaders in the Borg, they're just all one collective mind. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, apparently they have a Borg queen. To be honest, it's been such a long time since I've seen First Contact that I don't even remember if they explain why the Borg have a queen all of a sudden, or you're just supposed to accept that, yeah, they got a queen now, apparently. I mean, First Contact, I would say, is an A-tier movie, right? Yeah, I'd probably put it under Search for Spock. I probably enjoy Search for Spock a bit more, but of the next-gen movies, First Contact is probably the best. Star Trek Insurrection. I know this movie has its fans, but to be honest, I'm not feeling it. Like, I know there are people out there that enjoy Insurrection for what it is, but it's the worst of the next-gen movies for me. At least with the other Star Trek movies, you could argue it had a message, it was trying to explore an interesting concept and human nature, using like the sci-fi setting, like what Star Trek does. Where I feel like Insurrection was just a whole lot of nothing, and you know, maybe I have to re-watch Insurrection again in order to get that hidden meaning, or that message it was trying to convey, but to be honest, I'd rather not, because I didn't think it was that good of a movie the first time around. But man, that's a movie where the dumber moments end up being the best moments of that movie. Specifically, Data asking Worf about his assets, if you know what I mean.
And have you noticed how your boobs have started to firm up?
Or when Data starts singing a British tar from the HMS Pinafore.
His heart should stamp, and his throat should growl. His hair should curl, and his face should scowl.
Oh, and there was Data as the flotation device, and where he's underwater and he's like poking the fish a little bit. Like, that was kind of cute. So yeah, Insurrection for me, it's D tier. I am not a fan of that movie whatsoever. I consider it the worst of the next-gen movies. Galaxy Quest. And to be honest, I really only watched Galaxy Quest a couple of times all the way through, and then I would run into it on Pluto TV, and it would be like in the middle of it, so I'll be on like the treadmill and I'll just start watching it. And yeah, every time I tune into it, I have a fun time. So it's a Star Trek parody, and you can see where it's taking inspiration from the original series, specifically like the convention scene with the original series cast. But you could also see where it's poking fun of like some of like the next-gen era tropes. Specifically, you got like the boy genius on the bridge. You know, it's clearly supposed to be Wesley. And of course, you have the guy that's a parody of like every red shirt on the show. And the aliens that were the main antagonists, the design kind of reminds me of the Xindi from Enterprise. I think this was like way before. Was it way before Enterprise? I think it was. They came up with a very Star Trek-esque design for these aliens. I forget what they were called because I've only sat through the movie a couple of times. But then for Enterprise, they came up with something very similar. But yeah, I need to do a fresh rewatch of Galaxy Quest. But you know what? I'm gonna put it in the A tier. Because every time I turn it on, I always have a fun time. I'll put it under First Contact because it feels kind of weird putting it above First Contact. If you're a Trekkie and you want to have a few good laughs, definitely check out Galaxy Quest. Star Trek Nemesis. I believe the fan consensus on this one is that it's the worst Star Trek movie. And it's probably because this is the movie that killed off Data. Which was terrible. I didn't like that either. I'm gonna have to put this one above Insurrection in D tier. Because at the very least, Nemesis tried to explore an idea, which is a Star Trek staple. You have Picard confronting his Romulan clone Shinzon, and he's kind of mulling over the idea of like, hey, if I was raised differently, would I have turned out like Shinzon, you know, as twisted as he was? Which is a good idea for Star Trek to explore, kind of the whole nature versus nurture kind of philosophical debate. And no, the rest of the movie wasn't very good, but at least it tried to convey a message or try to explore an idea. Where with Insurrection, I feel like it really didn't explore an idea. Again, unless I gotta sit through it again, I just would rather not. Man, Insurrection would have been a great place for like a DS9 crossover. I think they considered that at one point and then decided against it. Because man, imagine Insurrection as like a Dominion War movie. That would have been something. But yeah, Nemesis, in my opinion, did not end the next gen story very well. It ended it on a whimper. Okay, now we're into the Kelvin timeline, which again, I can tolerate the Kelvin timeline because it is a separate timeline from like the rest of Star Trek. To be honest, I would be perfectly happy just ignoring the post-2009 Star Trek movies. But, you know, they're in this tier maker list, so I'm gonna address them. Star Trek 2009, I think I really only sat through a couple of times. For what it is, which is a sci-fi action movie, it's okay. It's definitely not on the same level as the original series, and definitely not as the original series movies. But for what it is, which is an action sci-fi movie, it's okay. I think Chris Pine as Kirk is, he's okay. He's nothing compared to Shatner. I wish he kind of played up more of like the Shatner kind of persona a bit more. In fact, if you check out his SNL skit, he can do a decent Shatner impression. So I kind of wish he played that up a little bit more, but I suppose, you know, it's all in the direction. We do get that appearance from Leonard Nimoy, and, you know, Leonard Nimoy, he's always nice to see in Star Trek, but yeah, this movie's okay for what it is, but I'd be happier just kind of treating it as its own thing and not really like the rest of Star Trek, if that makes any sense. I probably think of it better than Nemesis and Insurrection, so I'll put it like, basically this would be like low C tier. Because, yeah, for what it is, it's okay. But it's been quite a long time since I watched it. Maybe it's one of those movies I need to sit down and rewatch again after going through the rest of Star Trek. But I don't foresee my opinion of it improving. I think, like, a rewatch now would probably just decrease my opinion of it. So, for right now, I prefer to think of it as, like, a low C-tier movie. And, that's it. Alright, Star Trek Into Darkness. I admit, I only sat through it once, and it was the TV broadcast version of it, and I did not like it whatsoever. I basically described it as being Wrath of Khan, except they changed everything about Wrath of Khan. You have Khan played by Benedict Cumberbatch, which, I'm sorry, he's no Ricardo Montalban. You got more of the action-y stuff going on. It's not the philosophical Star Trek that I know and love. It's kind of its own thing. And, I didn't like it. So, I'm sorry guys, if you enjoyed Star Trek Into Darkness, that's great. It's going in the F tier for me, though. I'm sorry. Star Trek Beyond's another one I only watched once. That was the movie where it finally hit me how little substance there is in these Kelvin Timeline movies. And again, if you guys enjoy the Kelvin Timeline, that's totally cool. You know, you like what you like. As action movies, I'm sure they're okay. But I like my Star Trek to be philosophical, to have debates, to have these moral quandaries, to have some like really great acting, and maybe some action thrown in there, but not relying on action. Where I feel like Star Trek Beyond really relied on the action, and I wanted a little more meat from a Star Trek movie. So, yeah, it's a hard pass for me as well. Again, if you guys like the J.J. Abrams movies, that's totally fine. I'm not super big into them, so yeah, I'm gonna have to put this one in F tier as well. It's probably better than Into Darkness, because at least Beyond tried to do its own thing, at least from what I remember. Like I said, I only sat through it once. But, yeah, that's a hard pass for me. Alright, so here's my little tier maker of these Star Trek movies. So obviously you got the big two. You have Star Trek 4 and 2 up top in S tier. And, yeah, in general, I think the original series movies tend to rank higher for me. I think between the original series movies and the next gen movies, the original series movies are better. And I do think that cast was probably made more for cinema than the Next Gen cast, which I think was more made for TV. Which it's not a smack at either cast, you know, it's just they're better in different places. Yeah, I would say both the original series and Next Gen eras, they do feel very much like Star Trek. Even though the Next Gen movies tend to feel more like cinema and not so much the Star Trek we see on TV, but it still has the Star Trek essence, I will say that. The Star Trek era that feels for me more generic sci-fi action and less like the philosophical Star Trek that we know and love is the J.J. Abrams movies, the Kelvin timeline. And I know they certainly have their fans, and if you enjoy those movies, that's great. I'm not super big into them. I can recognize that Star Trek 2009 was a fun action flick, but compared to that movie and the original series cast, I'd rather go with the original series cast. But, that's just my opinion. There are some people that really love all the eras of Star Trek movies, and that's totally fine. But for me, the original series movies rank the highest, followed by Next Gen, and then the Kelvin timeline is pretty low. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Where do you rank these movies? Which rank really high for you? Which rank really low? Which are your favorite Star Trek movie eras? Please leave me comments below and discuss. As always, thanks for tuning in for another Tiermaker video. If you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends. Until next time.
Hello, computer.